I quit my corporate job 9 years ago, and here I want to talk about what that's really been like. Not the story where I tell you it's the best decision I ever made and everything worked out perfectly, because I think if you're watching this and thinking about doing the same, then it's only right that you hear the full story and not just the bits that went well. So here I'm going to talk about what I would do again, what I wouldn't, and some of the things that I just really wasn't prepared for. In hindsight, I'm not really sure how I ended up in the job that I did. It's not like it was planned out. It just kind of ended up that way. And I think that's the case with a lot of people. But in many ways, it ticked the boxes, you know. There was the salary, the career progression. What I thought of at the time was job security. And while our daughter was growing up, there was a sense of purpose. There was a meaning to going every day. But if I'm honest, deep down, I'd known for a long time that corporate wasn't for me. And it just felt like it was starting to take more than it was giving. You know, the stress, the hours, that constant feeling like there's more work than there is hours in the day. And I think you switch your laptop off at the end of the day, but you don't switch your mind off. When you know there's still work there, that comes home with you. And for that reason, I'm not sure if I ever truly struck a good work-life balance, whatever that might be. And then one holiday, my husband, probably after seeing me stressing to try and close my work down to even get out of the office for the holiday, and then fretting about what I was going to go back to, he just said to me, "Why don't you just go home and hand your notice in?" And I'm the sensible one out of the two of us, so my initial reaction was like, well, I can't do that. And he was just like, "Why not?" And I think I just needed to hear that, because it stirred something in me and I just couldn't switch off from that. For the rest of the holiday, or what felt like the rest of the holiday, we talked it through, and it actually started to feel like something I'd be able to do. By the time we got home, I had a plan, and a month later I handed in my notice. 9 years on, and I've learnt so much during that time. There's been highs, there's been lows, there's been changes along the way that I never could have anticipated. But if I was going to do it again, here's what I would do. And the first thing I would do is talk it through. And I don't mean the usual kind of moan about your job chat that we've all had. I mean really talk it through. Let that thought of actually being able to leave become real, and think about whether or not that's something that you really, really do want to do. And while you're doing that, get really, really clear on your why. That might sound simple, but honestly, I think it's so important, because when times get tough, that's the thing that keeps you grounded. You know, knowing why you've done it and what you want your life to look like now is the thing that you'll keep coming back to. If somebody questions what you're doing or you're doubting a decision, that's the thing that you'll anchor back to. So get really, really clear on your why. Next, I would make a plan. I hear so many people saying that they quit their job without a plan. And honestly, if you've lived this beyond the initial honeymoon period, I don't think that you would advise somebody to just do it without having a plan in place. In my experience, not everybody, because you are going to get people where the job was just so bad that they did have to just leave. But generally, the people that give this advice fall into two categories. Either they had little or no responsibilities, so the risk was really low, or they had a plan. It might not have been a detailed roadmap, but they had something. So a financial backup, an idea, something that they'd been working on for a long time. Either way, there was a plan there in place. So think about what you want this to look like on the other side, because this is more than just leaving your job. This is about what you're going to. So, you know, are you going to get a new job? Are you setting up a business? Are you retiring early? How much notice do you need to give? When are you going to give your notice? And what do you need your finances to look like to be able to make this happen? And that brings me on to the money. And this is where many people get stuck, and understandably so, because we all need money, right? What this is going to look like is going to be different for everybody. You know, are you going to live off savings for a while? Do you need a job to support the transition? I would start by looking at the minimum amount that you need to live on each month and how long you can sustain that for. And this isn't about living on as little as possible or scraping by. It's just about looking to see if there's any adjustments you can or want to make to be able to make this happen. and be really honest with yourself. Are all those monthly subscriptions really needed? You know, is that daily coffee an absolute non-negotiable? If it is, fine, but you just need to make sure that you factor that in and know that the things like that feel important now might feel less important when you realise the only way you can keep them is to stay in the job that you want to leave. And the last thing that I would say is allow yourself to be a beginner. I think as adults we don't do this enough. But if you're leaving something that you've been doing for a long time, something that you feel good at, you need to give yourself that permission to be a beginner, possibly over and over again. You know, you might be starting something new, which is part of the reason for leaving, right? But with that means that you won't always know everything. You might not always have the answers, and that's okay. But just be patient, be a beginner, and try and enjoy the process. So even though I did all of those things, there are still things that I would do differently. And I think in many ways, these are things that people don't talk about. And the biggest one, I think, is not to underestimate the emotional transition. Because when it comes down to it, there's so much more to leaving your job than just leaving your job. There is a huge identity change that comes with it. And I don't think I was really prepared for that. And what that looks like will be different for everyone. You know, it might be tied up in your job title, the salary, the company that you're working for, or it might be something much more personal to you. But whatever that is, when that goes, that thing that you're used to defaulting to, you can almost feel a little bit lost. And I think that lost feeling can come and go in waves. And I don't think it comes right at the start either, because at the beginning, you're almost in like this honeymoon phase. You finally handed your notice in, you finally left that job, and it's all really exciting. But months or even years down the line, when you're starting something new again, or you're still finding your footing, that feeling of lostness can come back and almost catch you off guard. And in many ways, that's down to the corporate world, because there's a structure there. You know each day what's expected of you. There's almost a structure there to the career progression. And when you leave that, all of that goes. For me, it was the busyness, and that was the biggest thing that I wanted to leave. But when I left and I had a break and that busyness went with it, there were times when I almost found myself looking for things to do, looking for emails that just weren't there. And it took me quite a while to really settle into that. So I'd say this isn't a reason not to leave, it's just something to be aware of. And if it comes up for you, at least you can know that and just try and work through it. The other thing I would say is don't expect other people to understand. They can't, because they haven't done what you're doing. And you might get this in two stages. You might get it at the beginning while you're still making your decision. You know, you're going to have all the people that will support you. But I would be careful of the people that you do choose to talk to, because you're always going to get the Nelly negatives that can give you every reason under the sun not to leave your job, but that might say more about them than it does about you. You know, if you talk to your work colleagues, for example, they might be envious that you're even thinking about it, or worried about the work that you're going to leave behind. And then on the other side of that, you've got the people that will ask questions, and most of the time they're not doing it to catch you out. They're just interested, they care, and you know, you've done something that many people haven't, so they're just curious. But for some reason, some of those questions at the beginning, or when you're still finding your footing, can just sit differently. Again, not a reason not to leave, but just something to be aware of. And the last thing I would say, although I'm sure there is plenty more, but it is not to measure your new life against your old salary. And I think I did this myself a little bit in the beginning, and I've heard other people do the same, almost saying, once I reach that salary, then I know I've been successful in whatever I'm doing now. But unless you need that certain figure, that salary is part of your old life, and I think it's you trying to grab onto that last little bit of identity. I would say it's not needed. It's not a fair comparison. So leave it at the door on your last day and just focus on all the reasons why you've left, because that's way, way more important. So 9 years on, would I do it again? Absolutely. absolutely. But I am not going to pretend for a second that it's been easy, because it really hasn't. It took me far longer to settle into things than I thought it would. It's not like it was just a year and then everything clicked into place. It's been longer, messier, and there have genuinely been times along the way when I have had no idea what I'm going to do next. But it's been so worth it, because the work that I do feels like it's got meaning. My time is my own, and I'm not left sat in an office wondering what if. I know because I've done it. I still do not have that roadmap all planned out ahead of me, but the longer I live like this, the less that I need to know, and there's something really refreshing about that. So I would say, if you are thinking about doing the same, then just give yourself time. You know, there's no rush. Make that plan and get really clear on your why. And if you do go for it, then allow yourself to be a beginner. Don't rush, and don't be too hard on yourself when things take longer than you thought they would, because they probably will. Thank you for watching. If you found any of this helpful, please hit that like and subscribe button and let me know, have you made this transition yourself, and did any of this resonate? Or are you in the middle of making this decision right now? Let me know in the comments. What's the biggest thing that's holding you back